Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I'd like to call to order the City of Everett City Council meeting, March 20th, 2024. The City Council meets all requirements of the State of Washington Open Public Meetings Act. Community members are welcome to join either in person, remote via Zoom, or by calling in. For those who wish to participate in future via Zoom, you'll find the instructions to register for public comment on the City of Everett website under the City Council departments. Please note that we do not allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. We ask that the audience refrain from clapping, cheering, or booing, and no signs of any kind are allowed in the chambers. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Fossey.
Here.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Here.
Councilmember Bader.
Excuse?
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Toohey.
Here.
President Schwab.
Here. I'd like to ask Councilmember Ryan to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, please stand if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Toohey to read the land acknowledgement.
Would love to. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Stohushi people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes for March 13, 2024?
Councilmember Ryan, so moved.
Second the motion?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Fossey.
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Toohey.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening, President Schwab and council members. I look forward to seeing, I think, almost all of you at the State of the City tomorrow afternoon. It's going to be a lot of fun. For the first time ever, we're hosting it in South Everett at the Everett Mall. And I was just talking to the Youth Advisory Board, and they're like, where do we go? And it's behind the mall, but there's going to be a lot of A-frame signs directing traffic. So don't go into the mall. You're going to go around and outside the mall to an interesting backdoor entrance. But for those of you that can't attend, it's going to be live streamed, so don't worry about that. It's going to be on the City of Everett Facebook and YouTube channels, so please check that. And for more information, you can go to everettwa.gov /State of the City, SOTC. Tonight, we're going to have a big conversation about revenue, and I'm really pleased that we're having that conversations. For decades, we've been making a number of cuts to ensure that we can continue to provide essential services to our residents. And I know that our council and I have struggled through that as we've kind of continued to shrink down quality of life services for other essential services, and so I'm really grateful for your courage and leadership in having these conversations and considering putting something forward for our residents to consider on the ballot. So I just want to appreciate the time that you're all investing in this, and definitely appreciate our finance team's time and energy in getting everything ready for us tonight. And then finally, it is Youth Art Month, and I would love to ask Council Member Judy Toohey to please read a proclamation on my behalf.
Will do. Whereas Youth Art Month is an annual celebration established in 1961 that recognizes the value of visual art education in a student's overall success and encourages support for quality art programs in our schools. And whereas experience in the visual arts cultivates valuable skills such as imagination, creative expression, effective collaboration, innovation, resourcefulness, and adaptability that are not the focus of other subjects in the K-12 curriculum. And whereas visual art education develops students' creative potential and improves problem-solving and critical thinking skills by reinforcing and bringing to life what students learn in other subjects, and Whereas the 2023-2024 theme for Youth Art Month is Dream in Art. And whereas in support of Youth Art Month, each state coordinates a contest in which students design a flag based on the annual theme. The winning designs are made into flags which are displayed and recognized at the National Art Education Association Convention. And whereas Youth Art Month aims to increase community understanding and interest in art and visual art education through involvement in art exhibits, workshops, and other creative ventures, and whereas multiple national leaders have acknowledged the necessity of including visual art experiences in all students' education, and whereas we recommend all those who advocate for youth art and educators throughout our state and encourage people to support visual arts programs in our schools. Now therefore, Mayor Cassie Franklin does hereby proclaim March 2024 as Youth Art Month. And we
Thank
do
you,
have,
Councilmember Toohey.
we do have teen night, free teen night tomorrow at the Shack Art Center, so hope to see them.
Awesome, thank you. And we'll have youth at the State of the City tomorrow, too. And I actually think one of our Youth Advisory Board members is introducing me, so. With no further comment this evening, thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, good evening, Angie. Do we have anyone signed up to speak?
Good evening, President Schwab. We do. We have one person on Zoom, so we'll start with Annie. And if Annie could please unmute and, if possible, turn your camera on. And you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and there's a clock there for you to monitor your time. And I just need you to state your full name and city of residence and start when you're ready.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we hear you.
Awesome. My name is Annie Fitzgerald, and I live in Marysville, Washington currently. The reason why I am here to speak tonight is I wanted to speak on behalf as a community member to show support for the homeless man and his friends who spoke at last week's meeting. As someone who has been homeless in Everett before, I understand what it's like. I understand the struggles and how difficult it can be. And I wanted to show that he and his friends have community support. I wanted to ask the city council to please consider helping him and his friends find a safe place where they can exist, where they are not harassed by police, where they are allowed to use their drugs safely, because I do believe that they should be allowed to do so as long as they are not harming themselves or harming others. And I would also like to see the community come together and help these homeless people in these situations so that hopefully they can find more secure housing. I would like to see more affordable housing within the city limits of Everett, as well as surrounding areas. And I'm not sure if the city council can help provide that. But I wanted to make sure that you guys understood that when he spoke last week, he wasn't just speaking on for himself or for his own needs. I went back and I watched all of the videos that he's been in, and he's been asking for help for some time for himself and his friends. And I just want him to know that he has community support, that there are people out there that care about him and his friends and that want them to be safe. And so I really would like for the city council to please consider providing some help and a safe place for them to reside, to exist, as well as providing places for them to use the restroom and so on and so forth. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to those in chambers, and we'll start with Kyle. If you could please come to the podium, followed by Lane, And please state your full name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak, and there's a monitoring system there. When the yellow light comes on, you'll have 30 seconds left. Thanks.
My name's Kyle Ferry. I live in Sultan. And before I talk about what I wanted to come talk about, I just wanted to say that this is my first time coming to a city council meeting. And I really appreciate that you do the Pledge of Allegiance beforehand. Just sitting here thinking about what I wanted to talk about, it definitely reminds me before the meeting begins about what brings us together, and that ultimately we're all on the same team here and we're all trying to do what's best for our communities. And what I'm here today is talk about the Waits Motel. I'm here as a friend of Emily Simpson, as you may all know her, the former manager of the Waits Motel. And everything is already set in stone. You guys have already acquired the property, you own it, there's no going back at this point. But I just want to let you know that, just Emily was the best thing that could have happened to Waits Motel, and I think you guys missed a great opportunity here, because I believe I saw an Everett Herald article about, Everett's been facing a lot of budget issues, and you guys just put $1.8 million into acquiring this motel, and I firmly believe, having all these different conversations, and just not even the stuff that you guys hear about, but just talking to her on a day-to-day basis about it, about how the passion she has for this place and the people that are in it, and how she really wanted the best for these people. Because you might not know this about Emily, but her mother died in a motel very similar to the Waits Motel. She has a deep, abounding passion for turning places like that around. I've never seen someone so impacted by such an event like that in her life. And it wouldn't have been one of those situations like you guys were talking about where, this place goes in cycles, it gets better, it gets worse. This was a true calling for her. This was like sorry to bring religion into it, but it is a divine purpose. I don't know, I feel really bad because I feel like this could have been her whole life goal. And it's just sad to see that was taken away from her. And I don't blame you guys because you don't know her personally like I do. You have no way to know that. You're just trying to make the best decision with the information you have available. But I wish that you had known her the way I know her before you made that decision. You would have realized that you should have given her the time that they asked for, because I firmly believe that this was a mistake and that you should have given them the time to prove it, because there's no doubt in my mind that she would have turned that place around for good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, if Lane could please come to the podium, followed by Leo. Lane? Oh, okay.
Cross me off.
Okay. Please state your full name and city of residence. You have 3
Lane
minutes.
Adam Forehand, Everett, Snohomish County, basically. Somebody brought up to me earlier today that basically you guys don't know the stories of most of these people out here. And I appreciate whoever, I think it was Angela, right? Appreciate that. We got some deep stories out there, and some of them are really sad. A lot of people have been raped. I've been a rape victim multiple times, men and women. I still live a hell, and I have memories, of course. I don't do drugs to bury them, and I do drugs because they make me feel good and they make me feel better. It has nothing to do with I have an addiction. I can control my addiction. I've been to drug and alcohol treatment twice. Okay, didn't really help out from the housing part, but I did learn a lot. I got a lot of tools. But at the same time, some of these people are so affected mentally from, things that have been happening to them and gone on through a whole bunch of stuff through life. I sat with one girl today, and she told me a little bit about herself. I just met her. And it bothers me that our city, some of the people are really based on just, and authority figures are based on you're trespassing. You're doing something wrong by trespassing or sitting down or resting or whatever. And this girl was so dang tired, she basically fell asleep sitting next to me, talking to me. And it's redundant that we constantly have to be pushed around. And I understand that these businesses want us to, I mean, if we were more presentable or maybe more cleaner or whatever, I don't know. I mean, we could definitely use more garbage cans, especially where we hang out. I know I would. I hate walking, like 5 blocks in order to throw something away. It kind of sucks because I actually pick my stuff up and take it. But these people have some messed up stories, and they are mentally affected in ways that really is really sad. And I seen an officer this morning also pick on somebody. He was just doing what he was called to do, his job, but she had mental issues. She wasn't high or anything, but she had mental issues. And he came at her a little bit more like that she was getting high or, that she was trespassing. It doesn't really matter exactly where he came off, but it was just, he could have been a little bit more compassionate. I mean, I felt bad for the girl. I mean, the girl almost got ripped off right in front of me. She had a few cigarettes, and the other guy came up and tried abusing her. I said, hey, dude, leave her alone. There are some of the homeless that also prey on the other homeless, and it's ridiculous that the homeless are scared of everybody, basically. We get harassed and everything, and somehow we got to come together. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next, if Emily could please come to the podium, followed by Alan. Please state your full name and city of residence.
Hello, city officials. My name is Emily Simpson. My residence is in Everett. Currently living in the Waits Motel in the manager's unit, waiting to be relocated. And I really want to keep my autonomy. I wanted to not, what's been offered is moving me into an extended stay hotel or motel, which is a little backwards in my opinion. I'd be gone tomorrow with some kind of a different way of doing that. If you can write a check or something like that, it would be what I would want. Don't know if that's in the cards or if that's legal. That's a good question for you, David Hall. But really wanted to talk about, now that you own it, you cut 85 trees down. And at the time, there was out of the 5 people living there, there was 4 Native Americans, Haida, Tsimshian, Lower Sklallam, and Jamestown tribe living there. Cut 85 trees. For what reason, I don't know. I'm guessing it's probably something like, liability or something. You can come up with any reason, but you did. It's kind of that top-down problem with these things. And then we went out and we asked, hey, can we have some of these tree trunks to give to our circle of carver friends? The carvings they make. Before a big pole is made, there's a little one made. And those would have been perfect. Cedar is really, really hard to come by. But no, I was told, nope, into the wood chipper. It went. It was pretty devastating. And maybe you can relate to that a little bit since you seem to appreciate the art. It's in your buildings. It's on that scarf right there that you're wearing. That's Formline. PNW tribes. That's style from Tulalip all the way up to Alaska. So another missed, opportunity in that way. Also, when you cut the hedge, that privacy of where I live was gone. Given the history of the place, that seems like a pretty bozo move to do. I was pretty much immediately stalked, harassed, had to keep all my blinds closed, and living in more fear than I ever have since you took ownership of it. So we just wanted to talk about that. Yeah, the trees, and that was just a ridiculous thing to happen, and it cost money to do that. You couldn't wait till we were gone? Why not? What was so important to do that? Maybe cut the half on one side or something, that you don't have these, this whole situation, you can't come up with the creative solutions. You just have to do the one-size-fits-all, what's cheapest. And the outcome is ugly. And you wouldn't know because the trees can't speak, and most of the time in these situations for hotels, motels, and marginalized populations, they don't have a voice. So those are just a couple things that have happened. I mean, tons of stories, and it's super sad because the homeless population was familiar with the Waits Motel, and they knew when new management took over, and I helped out as much as I could. You got to use the bathroom. Hang on. Go ahead. Follow the policies. Don't do anything in there, and then you can be on your way, madame or sir, or whatever. So that's wiped out. That's gone. So I don't know if you're real estate developers, but, do better.
Alan, if you could please come to the podium, followed by Chelsea. And please state your full name and city of residence. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Sure. Alan Miller, Everett, Washington. Two issues tonight that I'd like to talk about. One is 2520 Cedar. It's the convent that was there for the nuns for years. Yes, there was 1999. There was a special property use permit that was let to the place. The place now is a little overrun with people that are invading the property that I own right next to that property. And my tenants have called numerous times to come take care of the people that are using drugs or whatever else walking through the properties. But right behind to the right of that property is 2517 Fulton, which I was talking about last year. And you'll see a picture of that big tree out front. Years back, code compliance required them to cut those branches up at least 6 feet. And as of today, code has not enforced or I guess brought it up again to the owners that, hey, you need to prune these things up because people are hiding behind it. And they've invaded that property numerous times. So we just really need to clean that area up. Second is, since the change of the roads on Rucker, people are coming up, hit Everett Avenue, and then they just barrel down Rucker. And we need one more stop sign at 21st and Rucker. There's been numerous accidents there. I own a property right next door, and sometimes it takes me 2 minutes to get across the road because of traffic going 40, 50 miles an hour up there. So if we could ask code to take care of 2517, and I think we need to look at this special property use because it does talk about a fence to the north, and they have not followed through with putting that fence up. And maybe take a walk through. I walked through it today, and it's pretty disgusting on the inside of that building. So if anybody would like a copy of the 1999 special use program, I can get it to you. And I don't know, should I call traffic, or will you take care of traffic for me?
We'll have our team follow up. Jennifer Gregerson has been taking notes,
Okay.
and we'll follow up with you as well as on all of these issues.
Thank you very much.
Make sure, could you provide Jennifer with your contact information?
Sure.
Thank you.
And if Chelsea could please come to the podium. And please state your full name and city of residence. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Yeah, Chelsea Gray, City of Everett, 9 years. So this is my 11th meeting in a row, bar one that I missed due to illness. I am just going to start by giving you a log of the attacks on my browser at the public library on Friday, 3/8/24. From 5 to 6 p.m. The remote settings, a remote settings experiment loader was loaded and run on my browser 8 times. My remote settings as to location were changed twice. My remote settings as to tracking status also changed twice. Called progress listeners and call listeners were called to aid in this attack. 3 separate listeners identifiable by 3 separate ID numbers. And they were assigned to gain control of my URL bar or search bar and the input utilities event buffer therein. And 30 separate times they did so. Also, my forum or browser history and settings were attacked 3 times. My keystrokes were logged, stolen at least 4 times. Cookies were misusing this. I got a message saying cookies were misusing the site components. That was logged 4 times. Insecure requests were upgraded to HTTPS 4 times. Security policy warnings were issued 8 times by Firefox, Mozilla. My analytics were stolen twice. Partition, cookie, and storage access was granted to my attackers 3 times. My primary personal and business credentials, plus a decade of data, clouds, docs, etc., were stolen for a 3rd time each. My mouse clicks were collected the entire time. Furthermore, in a 31-page affidavit submitted to EPD and Lieutenant Pontaine around 7 p.m. yesterday, I submitted another browser log showing more of the same, where insecure requests tried to upgrade more than 58 separate times in that log from Monday 3/18. Again, remote settings were loaded, malware add-ons were loaded twice, and I am the unwilling participant of a pioneer enrollment study that I am prohibited from opting out of, which is at the crux of this series of crimes. Even further, I provided Lieutenant Pontaine and the EPD a 20-page document listing the full source code of these attacks, a source code that does nothing but seek to sync my location and my data and all instances of me front to back. The entire source code is written that way. And this is happening at your public libraries, and who knows how many machines it's on? Who knows if it's just me?
We need you to wrap up, Chelsea.
I'm done, but this is getting really serious, and the fact that you guys have continued to ask for evidence, and they can't run digital evidence. Resource issues, well, I've got no resource, I have less than 0 resources.
Thank you.
And I've done it.
Thank you.
And all I'm asking is that you now have somebody who has
Okay,
the knowledge
let's,
to review it.
Let's move on to council comments and liaison reports. Councilmember Mary Fossey.
I just want to say thank you to people who are coming and sharing their public comments. And then also thank you to the administration for following up on some of those.
Thank you, Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, one item tonight, a quick summary of our Parks and Quality of Life Council Committee meeting earlier on this evening, available, recorded if you want to listen to it. I'd like to express my thanks to the co-chair and others member, and also to the Parks staff for coming to not only give us a briefing, but engage in a kind of a back and forth about some of the different status, different categories of their parks, different purposes of the parks, explain some things I hadn't understood well before, helps us all make better decisions. In this case, it was focused on the issue of park lighting and what kinds of things are coming up that way with a grant. And then lastly, a chance for us to understand better what kind of environment Parks works in, their resources and priorities, helping us work with our community members as we do outreach with constituents and neighborhood groups and that sort of thing. So thanks again to the staff. It was a very productive meeting, and council members Vogely and Ryan were there with me, so if they have more to add, I'd welcome that.
Thank you, Councilmember Vogely.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming and sharing your stories. I still don't understand all of the things about IT, but I know that cybersecurity is super important to the city. So it's an interesting situation there. After last week's comments, yes, someone emailed and gave me the name of the person who I did not have the name of. So, in memory, Daryl Birch. Probably not saying that absolutely correctly. So rest in peace, Daryl Birch. Also, I don't have the given name, but there was another death that I would like to just say, I hope friends and family, street family and regular family may find
compassion and all of the good things that can possibly come from a death. And so rest in peace, Black Mike. And that is all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you. Over the weekend, I attended the Get Ready Market downtown for the Everett Farmers Market, and it was a beautiful day to get all sorts of produce, so that was a lot of fun. The next one's coming up on April 14th, also out here on Wetmore, so I'd encourage folks to come and join and get your local produce. This week I attended, on Monday I attended the Lowell Neighborhood Association meeting, and last night I attended the Valley View Neighborhood Association meeting. And at both meetings, Corey Hurt joined to share more about the red light cameras. I believe that's the 4th time I've heard the presentation. I could probably give it now if anybody needs to hear it. And just also Corey's doing a great job of outreach and engagement and making sure that the neighbors are familiar with the program and the timeline and just available for questions. So I wanted to give a shout out to Corey, and he also helped me with a constituent inquiry yesterday that was problem solved in one day, which I think is like lightning speed for government. So great job, everybody, and just wanted to give a big shout out to Corey for all that he's doing for our city. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Toohey.
Yeah, I have no further comments tonight.
Okay, good. And just for my part, we do have some really big decisions to make, and I would encourage all our council members and those that are watching and those in the public to submit your questions via email with staff, so we can they can do the research and get the best possible answers for our questions. Thank you. All right, speaking of that, do we have administrative update?
I was just waiting for all of your questions and tasks, and I didn't hear anything, so I don't have an update. Thanks.
Well, okay, city attorney, that was quick. That was the quickest administrative update we've had.
Equally quick, no report, no executive session.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So before the council, we have 8 consent items. Do I hear a motion to approve the 8 consent items?
So moved.
Seconded.
Hear a motion and a second. I guess no quick questions. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes?
Councilmember Ryan? Yes. Councilmember Toohey?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Okay, we have the next 2 items, 9 and 10. Item 9 was read into the record. At this point, I will read item 10 into the record. Council Bill 2403-88, first and second reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled Reservoir Number 3 Replacement Fund 336, Program 016, and repealing ordinance number 3914-22. The final reading will be March 27th, 2024. Does council have any questions or comments on item 9 or 10? Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, this is another one of those things that the reservoirs in our water system, both purification and the treatment of wastewater, boring but important. Actually, not that boring to me, but I understand if it is to much of the rest of the population. Going through this, I think a public interest in how well our city is run and how well we are taking care of public resources. This reservoir, I think, is over 100 years old, so I think we've gotten all of the good we can get out of that. The cover that they added to it later is decades old, so this is kind of an urgent situation to address that as part of a longer-term project. So I guess I'd just like to make the point that this kind of thing this utility, this facility has served really well for a long time. It's time to make a change, and I know improvements and repairs and all that are expensive, but in this case, I think the best possible use is being made of those funds, and I'd like to congratulate Public Works for stretching that out so long.
Okay, any other questions or comments on item 9 or 10? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to our action items. Item number 11, third and final reading. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second, the motion?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions on item number 11? Okay, hearing none. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan? Yes. Councilmember Toohey?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Okay, moving on to action item number 12, third and final reading. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
okay, motion and second. Do I have any questions on item number 12? Okay, hearing none. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Okay, yes. Item 13, third and final reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved, and may I make a question after it's seconded?
Absolutely.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Council,
This is not really having to do with it. Are you supposed to read in the number again for the third time? That's a legal question. it's,
It's not essential. That has been our practice in the past.
okay.
okay, so I'm not confused. Okay,
Okay, so would you like me to read them again?
you don't have to. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure it wasn't necessary.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
No, that's a good question.
Other than that,
All right. Well, I guess at this point, I will not read it twice. I do read it in the first time unless there's request by council. No other questions or comments. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item number 14, authorize the mayor to sign a guaranteed maximum price amendment with general contractor, construction manager, GC/CM, being builders for EMP-PW tenant improvement project.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, and I have a question, this is a different type of legislation? I don't hear a first or second or third reading, or is this the third reading? Because I don't have that on my notes. Or I don't have a council bill number that goes with it either.
It's not an ordinance. It
Okay.
doesn't require 3 readings. It's on your action agenda, like some items sometimes are.
Yep.
You did have an update on this, like, I want to say like 2 weeks ago, could have been 3 weeks ago. And this is the next step
Okay.
in that process.
I just wanted to clarify that for the,
You know what, it's a great question. Our attorney, one of our other city attorneys sent an email and said, council might have questions about this because
Okay.
of that, and there's more background to it, but that's kind of the gist of it. Yeah.
thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay.
Why, yes. So this is an amendment. I don't think I got to page 7 of 15. This is an amendment to a guaranteed maximum price. So have we already seen the guaranteed maximum price for this? And is this really an amendment of that? Like, actually, I think I have the answer, but tell me more about this, please.
Sure. Bob Leonard, Parks and Facilities. So I'm actually, one of our attorneys actually has been prepared us for this inevitability, so.
You know
let's
me
read
so
what he has
well.
actually put. So the GCCM process is governed under RCW 39.10. And under that process, there is an RFP process that culminated, we already did, which culminated in May of 2023, where council approved the GCCM contract with BN Builders. That GCCM contract is an almost complete construction contract and is a very big document. It's about 482 pages with exhibits. The GCCM contract is a 2-phase contract. Phase 1 is the pre-construction services, which is what we've been in, and it culminates in a guaranteed maximum price, which is what we have here now. And so we're actually going to take the Exhibit A, which is the guaranteed maximum price, and it goes into an exhibit into the existing contract that was approved back in May of '23.
Okay, so is this the real guaranteed price then?
Yes, it's a guaranteed maximum price.
And I know that everything can be amended eventually. I am
fully understanding that
Point
amendments
of going
happen.
with the GCCM process is really to get some more certainty on construction so that we don't get the change orders like we could in a project like this.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. So this is part of the 39 million, not in addition to.
This is
39.
part of the 39, yes.
Thank you.
The construction, just for B&B builders, yes.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, motion before you. Do I hear a motion to move?
I think we already did.
Did we do that? Yes. Okay, well, you guys have good questions that get lost, I suppose. All right, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Vice President Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Tui?
Yes.
President Schwab?
Yes, so that concludes our action items, and moving on to our briefing item on revenue options. We have our Finance Director, Susie Haugen, here to brief us today.
Turn on your mic. There we go. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Let's get situated here. So tonight, I'll be going over some additional details on the 3 revenue options that have been under consideration. I'll start with a short review of the property tax distribution among taxing districts that have been, it's been updated with 2024 numbers now. The last time you saw it was in the fall with 23 numbers. And then we'll take a quick look at the forecast assumptions that are driving the numbers that we'll discuss as we go through the 3 options. So I do think it's helpful to periodically review what makes up a typical tax bill to address some common misconceptions that we hear often regarding where the money goes when you write that check to the county assessor. And this graphic provides the distribution of the 2024 property tax levies to the various taxing districts. The total 2024 levy rate of $8.55.8 shown at the top of this slide represents a typical total levy rate in Everett. And this rate is shown as typical in the assessor's report, but total levy rates may vary slightly for different Everett property owners depending on what school district you're in or whether you're part of the Regional Transit Authority area or RTA or the Port of Everett. But this is on average the typical rate. And as shown here, most of the tax collected goes to support schools, or 68 cents of every dollar. After that, 18 cents goes to the city of Everett to support core services, 6 cents to the county, 4 cents to EMS for emergency transport services, and then roughly 2 cents each to the port and the Regional Transit Authority, or RTA.
Quick question. Just before we leave this, I had done some recent calculations myself in some different parts of the city and looked at my own, and I think I was and I'm not in the Port District, but am in the RTA District. So I think the city of Everett was getting like 17 cents for me. I think maybe the EMS was higher. Is that plus or minus a penny, the kind of scale of variability that you'd expect?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thanks.
So this slide provides another view in terms of the average value residence in Everett. According to the assessor's annual report, the average value residence in Everett in 2024 is $520,600. And this is actually down from $551,000 in 2023. But based on that assessed value, this property owner would pay a total of $4,471 in property tax in 2024. Of that amount, $3,037 would go to schools, $793 would go to the city, $262 to the county, $195 to EMS, $98 to the port, and $86 to RTA. So shifting now to our forecast assumptions, I wanted to briefly go over some of the drivers behind the numbers we'll be reviewing. Starting at the top, the assessed value of all property in the city limits of Everett is $26.9 billion. We project that to grow to $32.9 billion by 2030 as a result of assessor revaluations and new construction being added to the tax rolls. The result of assessed value growing by 3.4% on average, combined with the city's levy being held to only 1%, is a decrease in levy rate over time. We estimate that our 2024 levy rate of $1.52 per $1,000 of assessed value will decline to $1.35 by the year 2030. Our forecast for the average home value starts with $520,000 in 2024 and then grows to $618,000 by 2030. Our growth is based on various economist reports and indexes on housing values.
Councilmember Zingle.
The 26.9 billion, that includes, does that include only the properties that are assessed and are paying property taxes? Because I know there are some things that aren't on our property tax rolls at all. Then there are things like the multifamily tax exemption where there's a temporary exemption. Can you
Tax
enlighten me on that?
properties, yes.
It's the ones that are actually paying
Yes.
taxes, okay.
The next three items provide forecast data from our general government forecast model, including the library and fire budgets, as well as the overall deficit forecast. Please note that the general government forecast shown in this slide reflects the existing base case and does not include any changes in revenue from the options under consideration. The deficit forecast shows 2024 is balanced, with deficits growing to $35.4 million by 2030, after accounting for prior year budget variances, given no changes in revenue and expenditure patterns.
Question. When you say expenditure patterns, that still means low on the capital improvement project? Because right now, in my opinion, we're not spending enough on capital improvements, so you're continuing that forecasting?
Correct. The contributions to CIP1, which is the fund that funds our maintaining major renovations, improvements to existing facilities, things that we already own, like the Everett Municipal Building. In the forecast model, we have $3 million a year going in there. The Ming study from 2019, although it's a little old, it suggested we should be putting $6 million a year in that fund. But the city has just not had the capability to do that.
So to simplify my question, your forecasting does not include it's a lower end of capital improvement investment.
Correct. So the first option we'll be looking at is annexation to the Snow Isle Regional Library System. The Snow Isle system currently serves a population of 800,000 at 23 locations in Snohomish and Island counties. The system delivers a variety of services and programs, including in-person and online events, Wi-Fi connections, laptop and Wi-Fi hotspot checkouts, and the Book a Librarian program. Snow Isle's governance includes a 7-member board, 5 of which represent Snohomish County Council and 2 represent the Island County Commission. All members are confirmed by joint actions of both legislative bodies. So now let's take a look at the potential financial impact of an annexation. Because of timing requirements for getting an annexation on the assessor's tax rolls, we are too late to get it on the ballot that would impact 2025 taxes. So this analysis assumes the vote would be by the April ballot in 2025 for implementation in 2026, which should be viewed as a best-case scenario with a pretty aggressive timeline. The projected deficit reduction occurs in 2026, year 1 of this example, which according to our current forecast is just under $7 million. Looking at the chart, you can see that the original deficit forecast in the blue line and the revised forecast after annexation in the green line. Based on this timeline and current assumptions, The deficit drops from 16.8 million to 9.9 million, but then follows the same trend from that point forward. Property owners would be impacted by adding Snow Isle's levy rate to the tax rolls for property located inside the city limits of Everett. The 2024 Snow Isle levy rate is 32 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. I'm using the 2024 levy rate for this analysis, even though it's projecting out to 2026, because that is actually the best information I have at this time. I don't really have sufficient information on their finances to try to forecast out their levy rate. The forecasted average value of a residence, thank you, in 2026 is $549,000. Based on that value and the Snow Isle levy rate, that property owner would pay an additional $14.83 per month, or $178 per year in property tax if the city were to annex the library services. Next up is the Regional Fire Authority, or RFA, annexation. And I'll begin with a little information regarding annexation requirements and governance. RCW 5226 establishes that Regional Fire Protection Service members must be located within reasonable proximity to one another. If the city were to join an existing RFA, options would include the South Snohomish County RFA and the Marysville RFA, should they be interested in annexing the city of Everett. We're not currently aware of any willing partners that would meet the proximity requirements among other independent fire service agencies to create a new RFA. The details of RFA governance is determined by the authority's plan. However, there are a few base requirements. For example, the makeup of the board must consist of elected officials of participating jurisdictions or elected commissioners or some combination of both. Terms of office may be established by the plan up to a maximum of 6 years, and the plan may also establish commissioner districts. And now we'll look at the potential financial impacts from an annexation to an RFA. Note that you'll see the levy distribution pie at the top of each slide showing financial information as a reminder that in all of the scenarios, we are only talking about the city's regular levy, which represents about 18% of the total property tax paid by Everett taxpayers annually. Although there are no decisions or recommendations have been made regarding a potential partner, the analysis I'll be presenting incorporates South Snohomish County RFA's 2024 levy rate and their fire benefit charge formula. So please view these numbers as representative only of any potential outcomes. One of Council's most important decision points in the annexation process will be by how much, if any, the city would lower its regular levy to offset some or all of the initial taxpayer impacts resulting from the annexation. The chart on this slide shows a range of options with the percent decrease in the city's regular levy along the bottom, ranging from a 10% reduction to a 64% reduction, and the corresponding annual impact to the average value residence in the blue line above. For example, if the city reduced its levy by 10% in the first year of the annexation, the overall cost increase to the average value residence would be $36.33 per month, or $436 per year. If the city's levy was reduced by 40%, the overall cost increase would be $16.33 per month, or $196 per year. And if the city's levy was reduced by 64%, there would be no initial impact to the average value residence. And the reason why we are able to arrive at an outcome where there is no initial impact to the average value residence is because South Snohomish County funds a portion of its fire service through a fire benefit charge rather than 100% through property tax. Recall that a fire benefit charge is a fee that is based on the benefit of having fire services. It considers that those who benefit more from fire protection services like large or high fire risk structures should pay more for that service. The benefit charge is not a per-call charge. It is not based on property value. It is based on structure size, use, and risk. Residential properties benefit from that type of a fee structure. And now I want to talk for a moment about bank capacity. If the city were to lower its levy in the first year of annexation, bank capacity in our regular levy would be created. That bank capacity could then be used over time to help balance future budgets by allowing council to raise the levy amount by more than 1% in future property tax ordinances. The decision regarding if, when, or at what pace bank capacity would be consumed would be a council decision as a part of the annual budget process. And we'll take a closer look at bank capacity in an upcoming slide. This chart presents the potential deficit reduction from annexation using the same basis with levy reduction percent along the bottom and the corresponding deficit reduction in the green line above. If the city reduced its regular levy by 10%, the deficit would decline by an estimated $26.6 million. If the regular levy was reduced by 40%, the deficit would be reduced by $14 million. And if the levy were to be lowered by 64%, deficit would fall by $3.7 million. So in summary, the greater the regular levy reduction, the less initial impact on the average value resident, and the less deficit reduction for the general government. This chart shows the estimated bank capacity that would be created by corresponding reductions in the regular levy. Again, starting with a 10% reduction, $4.2 million in bank capacity would be created. With a 40% reduction, there would be $16.84 million, and a 64% reduction would result in $27 million that could be used over time to help balance future budgets and fund core services. And the last number slide for the RFA annexation shows how many years the city would have until the general government's deficit would return under the current forecast. This chart is also based on the percent decrease in the regular levy at the bottom, and the green columns show the number of years above. So with a 10% levy reduction, we could go about 7 years under current revenue and expenditure trends. However, a 40% reduction and above, the resulting deficit reduction would be insufficient to cover even 1 full year. And this slide brings all 4 charts together so you can easily shift from one to the other to see the corresponding taxpayer and budget impacts from the range of regular levy reductions presented. And I realize that's a lot of information to absorb rather quickly, so I'd like to pause for a moment and see if you have any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Vogely.
I think this is a general tax question rather than city-specific. Well, no. Okay. So Councilmember Zarlingo said something that piqued my interest, and I'm not sure exactly what it was, but it was depending on who's paying taxes. And so I'm wondering who's not paying property taxes. I know renters, but like, it seemed interesting. So I could leave it at that, or, and, well, you can decide. Homeowners pay property taxes. However, if a person or entity has more than one property and they're only living in one place and they just have the properties other places that they're not living in, typically, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lower property tax for, you know, the loan, the person's loan. Let's say they pay 8% on their loan for the house that they live in, or townhome or what have you. and then more if they own other properties. Does that type of higher percentage on the other properties come into effect when we're charging property tax? Like, does that make any sense at all?
Well, let me start with your first question.
Okay.
How about that? There's, there is a group of properties that are exempt from property tax, so that would be government buildings, for example, Snohomish County's building, or the port property. Those are not subject to property tax. In addition, there are other buildings that would be exempt from property tax, and that would include hospitals is one of them. I believe churches are also exempt. I'm afraid I don't have a complete list probably in my head tonight, but those would be the main entities that do not pay property tax. In reference to your other question, I'll try to get at it. I'm not quite sure if I can answer it well.
You're
but
really
I'll-
good at
I'll
answering
give it
my
a shot.
questions.
I'll give it a shot.
And explaining to everybody else what I meant.
So let's say you have a property owner that owns a home, and they live in that home, but they also own another home that somebody else lives in. Both of those homes are going to be taxed by whatever the value of their homes are. It doesn't matter if it's an owner-occupied home or a rental home. So that's completely the same. I'm guessing perhaps maybe what you're thinking about is if I am seeking home loans, a mortgage from a bank, I may get, it may cost, the mortgage rate may be higher if I'm not occupying the residence that I'm getting a loan for. But that wouldn't have nothing to do with property tax or how the homes are taxed.
Thank you. I'm just trying to figure
Sure.
out how we can, tax the rich. But that's not one of them.
Well, and even though, you were saying you didn't think that renters paid property tax, not directly, but
Right.
the homes they live in certainly are subject to property tax, so
So whatever
the rent
it
that
raises.
they're paying, I'm sure is, everybody pays.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions so far? I have a couple. The multifamily tax exemption, it's on, my understanding, it's on the city levy rate. Does that include, it doesn't include EMS, is EMS separate, right? That's 100%.
It includes,
It does, so the
Yes.
multifamily exemption does include a reduction in any
It
city
does.
rate tax?
yes.
Okay, what about if we were going to go with the snow aisle? Because that's a levy rate. Would that be exempt?
That actually is a good question. I haven't looked to see how the multifamily tax exemptions that we provide those developments, how that impacts a different taxing district.
Okay.
It hasn't come up for me before, but that's an excellent question.
But
I'll get
since
back
it-
to you.
Okay, since an EMS and it's the city of Everett's
Mm-hmm.
jurisdiction, then it would apply. Also, the other question I have is the amount, has there been any numbers as far as multifamily units and what the, per unit cost would be for a building apartment owner? What their increases were? Is there some sort of general cost, per unit? It'd be interesting to know, how much per unit one of these larger complexes are gonna be charged.
I could certainly do some research on that for you. The assessors don't publish an average multifamily residence value, so property tax is always going to be on the value of the property. So the land, underlying land and the value of the structure on that land, if there is one. And because there's so much variability in multifamily, and it's not just in the number of units that you might be looking at, but it also could be where it's located has a big impact on the value. Even the quality of construction or maintenance, all of that is going to be going into the value of that property. And whatever that value is going to be subject to the tax rate. So What I can do, however, is go back and do some research on a couple of different multifamilies.
Susie, maybe I would recommend, Council President, if you have like, because, so property tax information, it's on the assessor. You could look up anybody, any address and know the taxes that are paid and the value. So if there's a couple of properties that you want to connect back with me and let me know, like, this is a big building that's got like 100 units in it, and then here's a duplex or here's a fourplex that, you know, kind of a range. But just as Susie was saying, like, let me do a lot of research. I wanted to jump in and tell her to hold their horses a little bit. If there's something that could help us, give us some parameters, maybe.
I'll come up
Perhaps,
with
I don't know.
I'll come up with 3 examples.
That'd be great.
Okay, good. That's
Okay.
all I would need anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then the other question where we talk about taxes, there are some medical facilities like clinics. Are they tax exempt?
No.
Okay, and how about some of our retirement apartments and centers?
I don't believe so unless they're government-based.
Okay. Certainly the school district facilities are tax. That was one of the questions, or tax, not tax.
Not taxed.
Yes.
There could be like Everett Housing Authority or properties that, not just the multifamily tax exemption, but they might receive tax credits for their construction. So there's other examples that might fit that, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, I want to make sure that different angles on this. So it sounds like this sort of scales, so that if you had a 100-unit luxury apartment building with each apartment costing about $1 million, or valued at $1 million, they would pay the same taxes per unit as $1 million single-family house. So it's, and so we could get to some of these numbers by just looking at the assessed value of an apartment building divided by the number of units. You'd have the average taxes paid.
Yes.
And if that happened to be the $500 and some thousand that was the average, or maybe it was a condo or something, they would pay the same as a single family.
It's all based on value.
And then just, it gets complicated, I guess, especially with the tax exemptions.
Yes.
Because the multifamily tax exemption is a partial exemption of the stuff we have control over. But that perhaps if we took the library out of the city's budget, then that might subject, well, I want to get ahead of myself or too complicated. I'll leave that for later.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ryan, you had your hand.
Thank you. My apologies if I missed a mention of it. If I'm reading this correctly, for both the, an RFA would follow generally the same timeline that an annexation would, and we wouldn't realize any revenue differentiations until 2026?
Yes, we have been talking about an RFA as a merger, but technically it would still be an annexation.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
By annexation, I think you mean that we would be annexed into an RFA district.
Yes. Okay, the last concept, let's see. Okay, the last concept I have relating to library and RFA annexations that I'd like to present tonight is the impact on the city's maximum levy rate. If either annexation would occur, the city's maximum levy rate would change. Our current maximum levy rate is $3.60 per $1,000 of assessed value. That rate is made up of $3.37.5 as the base, and then we get an additional capacity of 22.5 cents because we have the LEF 1 Fire Pension Fund obligation. If the city were to annex to the Snow Isle Library System, our maximum levy rate would first increase to $3.82.5, but then be reduced by Snow Isle's current levy rate. In 2024, that would result in a new maximum levy rate of $3.50.5 per $1,000 of assessed value. If the city were to annex to an RFA, and I'll continue to use South County RFA here as an example, our maximum levy rate would again increase to $3.82.5, but then reduce by the RFA's actual rates. In 2024, that would result in a new maximum levy rate of $3.50. And if the city were to annex to both Snow Isle and the RFA, our revised maximum levy rate of $3.82.5 would be reduced by both Snow Isle and the RFA's actual levy rates down to $2.68.5. But because our actual levy rate is only $1.52, there would still be more than $1.16.5 of capacity remaining, even if both annexations were enacted.
Question on this one. So doesn't the city of Everett's, don't they take precedence over the junior taxing districts?
Oh, yes, when you're talking about that concept, we're talking about having to prorate levy reductions in the event that, in the event that our collective tax rates with all the taxing districts were to exceed the $10. And so that is absolutely correct, that the city is one of the last to give up any levy. This has to do with whatever, when you calculate what your levy rate is, which is whatever our levy amount is, how much our assessed value divided by 1,000 will cover that levy amount. That's how you get to your levy rate. We can't exceed today a levy rate of $3.60. We have not been there basically since the Snohomish County started doing annual revaluations. Many, many years ago, I think it was early 2000s, they used to, and before that, they did a revaluation every 4 years. So at that point, we would, over the first 3 years, we'd start bumping up against our maximum levy rate, because also, back in those days, our maximum increase wasn't 1% per year, it was 6%. So the effect of that meant that we would be maxing out in our levy rate and wouldn't be able to raise taxes, maybe in the last year of the reevaluation cycle. With the 1% limit and the annual revaluations, we haven't really even been close. So.
Thank you.
And to add on to that, let's get some more confusing words out of Councilmember Vogely. Our max rate is 3.8. Then I see at the very bottom line there, 2.6. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is that a lot of money for the city or little money for the city? What does that 268 mean in? Can you just go over that one more time, please?
Sure. And perhaps I need to bring back another exhibit to talk about how that works. I don't have, the detail of that on this slide. I have the outcome.
Yeah.
And so perhaps if I bring back an exhibit that kind of shows the mechanics of how that works, that might be helpful. Wouldn't be able to do that tonight, but certainly maybe our next briefing. At any rate, right now, our levy rate is $1.52, and that generates over $40 million in property tax. So if for some reason property values declined, that would, and we didn't reduce our levy amount, what would happen is our levy rate would increase. And right now, it can increase to $3.60 before it's capped. So.
I think I'm getting it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
I mean, don't quiz me on it, but.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I apologize for that concept, but I really couldn't leave these annexation discussions without making sure that everybody understood that there would be an impact to our maximum levy rate. And I can certainly spend a little bit more time on that maybe next time with a different slide.
Yeah, let's do that at a future meeting. It can get really complicated, and I think it's important that we go through all three revenue options before our brains can't take it anymore.
And the levy lid lift is the last option for review tonight. We talked in previous briefings about the 4 different lift structures that would be available to the city. The analysis I'm presenting tonight is based on a one-time permanent lift as the best fit to begin to address the city's general government budget deficit. In this chart, along the bottom, we show a range of potential annual impacts, $100 to $400 for an average value residence, and the corresponding deficit reduction amounts in the red to green columns above. And I added the color to emphasize that the lower impact lifts would not generate enough revenue to make a meaningful difference to the city's ability to fund core services. So to walk you through this chart, a lid lift that would produce an annual tax increase of $100 per year for the average value home would also reduce the deficit by $5.2 million, but it would take almost $250 in increase to balance the 2025 budget. At the top of the range presented, a $400 increase would generate $21 million, which would balance the budget for more than 1 year based on current revenue and expenditure trends. And this chart shows the same range of tax increases for the average value residence along the bottom, and the corresponding estimated number of years until the deficit would return in the green columns above. As I noted on the previous slide, it would take nearly a $20.83 monthly or $250 annual increase for the average homeowner to produce enough revenue to balance the budget for 1 year, while $400 would extend that period for up to about 5 years.
Question for you. With your forecasting, and that is assuming we have a cash carry forward?
Yes, that's after
Okay.
accounting for that.
Thanks.
Both charts are on this slide, and I'd like to again take a pause and give everybody a chance to ask some questions.
Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you. Maybe for a future presentation, if we could correlate these numbers with a percentage increase, because we're capped at 1% right now, so what would these numbers correlate to for a percentage increase would be helpful to know. Thanks.
Do you know off the top of your head what they are?
No.
Okay. Just checking.
She knows a lot.
I know. Well, I just thought I'd test. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, there's an additional complexity there too, because is it a percentage of one's total taxes or is it a percentage of one's Everett City taxes? Because we got to go back to the point about us getting 17 or 18 cents out of every tax dollars to get to fund all the city operations, currently including library and fire as well.
That's very true.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. So far, so good.
Okay.
Everyone's still hanging in here. Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the timelines associated with these options, both the fire and library annexations will require negotiations and additional steps with the relevant commissions or boards. And because we are already well past the deadline to place a measure on the April 24 ballot, the very earliest these measures could be in effect would be January of 26, and that would require voter approval no later than April of 25. Given the steps that we would need to accomplish, even April of 25 would require an optimistic and very aggressive schedule to meet. Agreements would need to be negotiated with the annexing agencies. For example, how would the internal reporting structure work, and what are the technical details associated with transferring assets like fire stations and libraries and vehicles or other equipment? And we'd also need to negotiate any potential labor impacts with our AFSCME and fire IAFF unions. Although South County RFA, for example, is one of the city's comparables, and Snow Isle has recently joined the AFSCME union, there'd still likely be differences that would need to be addressed before completing an annexation. We strongly recommend continuing to work on these initiatives. However, we recognize that they represent a longer-term efforts, and to fully answer your questions, engage employees, and negotiate with these organizations, more time would be needed.
Comment?
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yeah, just 2 years ago, I was on the Board of Health, the Snohomish County Board of Health, that was essentially transferred to become a department of the county. And that was a transfer essentially uncontested with a very smart, hardworking group, and it was a hard dead run for all the rest of the year, and it didn't actually completely get finished even in that year. So I think this seems more complicated than that. I think your time frame, when you say very optimistic, I believe you.
Thank you.
I would agree. Any other questions?
To add to that comment, were any of the people moving the health department to, were there any elected officials that were involved in that?
The board is elected official, as primarily composed of elected officials. It's half elected officials now as a department. But it was mostly the work of staff. That was the biggest thing. There was some union stuff. There were retirement qualification complexities that I don't think were seen early on as well because of the particular status of those employees.
And the reason I ask about elected officials is, we are those folks, and soon enough, there could be a difference of opinion, which if we go one way right now, could go a completely different way in a year. And that's just the nature of the game. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The levy lid lift, on the other hand, could conceivably be accomplished this year for implementation in January of '25. A timeline is outlined in this slide that would put a lid lift measure on the August ballot. In the January through March timeframe, we've had 2 briefings that have already occurred, plus the one we're doing tonight, and we have a placeholder for next Wednesday. In April, we're envisioning a briefing or hearing on each Wednesday, with potential special meetings on April 15th or the 22nd, and a 5 p.m. Budget Committee meeting if needed. Also in April, legal would develop a resolution and ballot measure. The ballot measure will need to be delivered to the county elections office by May 3rd. And the work of educating the community regarding the need for the lid lift will occur between May and the election date of August 6th. And finally, if approved, the lift would be implemented in January of 2025. Now, we understand that this is a fairly ambitious schedule. However, the city has been working towards this goal for a few years now, and the need is urgent to work towards achieving some sort of financial support next year.
And I would just add that there's obvious opportunities for education after council identifies the exact amount and uses and that exact ballot language. That's a lot of council meetings. Those are also opportunities for community conversation and input. So that's some of the purpose of the number of those meetings. And I have talked with your council president and vice president about, topics for that and what that could look like. So anyways, just wanted to add that in.
Questions on the timeline? I think this is really important. We can have more discussion. Sure like to get your feedback individually, of course, over time. But I know this is the first that we've probably put it official.
I think there's just one more slide, right, Susie,
For-
can Susie finish and then
For the
question on
timeline?
the whole thing,
Okay,
if that's okay?
sure.
Okay, final slide. Because a levy lid lift can produce revenue in 2025, we recommend that council approve moving forward with developing a ballot measure to place before voters on the August ballot. But as I've mentioned in previous briefings, resolving our structural deficit will not be a one-and-done event. The previous charts show that the lid lift, depending on the amount approved, will only balance the budget for a few years at best. Therefore, we also recommend that the city continue working towards Snow Isle and RFA annexations to create more fiscal sustainability so that core services can be supported and maintained over a longer period of time. And that is all I have.
I just cut. All right. I think this is really important. So any questions, comments at this time? Councilmember Ryan?
Great. Can you share a little bit more about these upcoming April meetings and what workshopping would look like, or, because that's it. That's my question.
I wrote up, anyways, I'll start and then you.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of a draft of what those meetings might look like. So you saw on the levy lid lift, that range of like, I like to do this, like 5 options. Next week, it'd be great to start to narrow those down to a couple options. So we've got notes on questions that you had that we could also bring back. That could lead into the following week, April 3rd. So if we've got a short list of rate options and we know it's 100 to 400 per average household, but now we know it's more like something in the middle. What are uses and topics that could fund? And so that's an opportunity to talk about what those uses might be, what that message we want to share with the community about what the purpose of that. So April 3rd. Internally, we talked about April 10th being a good chance to do a little refresher on what you heard about a month ago, what we've cut before, how we got here, why this is an important topic. It can also be a public hearing. We have to notice those with 2 weeks, so we're got to push that out a couple weeks. So that could be a chance to, have a little additional public notice, make it more of a formal opportunity for the public to comment. You've already talked about some uses. You've already talked about rates, like with a little more clarity than we've gotten to so far. Our concept, the mayor's idea actually on April 17th was to sort of make it like a Q&A night. Questions we've heard in the neighborhoods, on social media, questions we've heard from council members, kind of myths and facts, that sort of structure. Leading to, so there's just after that, 2 more meetings before, unless you add special meetings, but 2 more meetings before that final decision. So the 24th would be a good chance for you to take a real action, a motion on the rate and the uses. So if you narrow it down early, I said next week, that doesn't mean you have to do it next week, of course. But you'll have narrowed it down at that point. So really selecting a rate, identifying some more specific uses so that staff has time to build out that ballot measure language that you would approve at that May 1st meeting. So if everything goes according to my plan, then you'd be ready to place it on the ballot by that date. Those are some of the topics we might talk about if we filled up, all those Mondays. Or Mondays, that's my old life, all those Wednesdays with this item.
And I'll just jump in. This is obviously one of the most important votes that you as a council have considered in years. And so I think it's very worthy of having additional special meetings, either starting a meeting at 5 and getting rid of our council committee meetings on those days, which could happen on multiple April dates, or having a special Monday meeting. Again, I see all of those April meetings as a real opportunity for us to hear from the public and hear their fears and concerns and why can't the government just do this without increasing taxes? And I know we're going to hear a lot of that, and I think it's going to take a lot of community conversations, and that will help you kind of set the rate and make the right decision for whatever goes to the ballot. But then after you all decide what that's going to look like, then that community education does get really big that May through August. And we can't campaign, we can't say, go vote for this to do this, but we can really educate. Staff can still educate the community on what's happening. And then we as electeds can have a different role as well. But staff can still continue to share with the public what's going on and why this is in before them for consideration. So it's going to be a lot of work for our staff in this time frame. But I think as Susie shared, we've been talking about this for years, and I'm grateful that you all are willing to have this conversation and take this under consideration.
And sorry, did you have another question?
Just to, as a mention, I believe it's the April 10th meeting. We're going to be having the first of 3 hearings for the Park District project.
Very aware of that. And we are still in conversations with the Park District, so I'll fold that in and we'll talk about how that makes the most sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're just making time and space for what I'm expecting to be a lot of public comment, which is great, but
Yeah.
sure Susie would like to make it home before 10 PM
We
those
don't-
nights.
So Planning Commission had 2 to 3 hours of comments when they had public hearings. We want to provide that opportunity, and we don't want to roll into this topic, like you said, at like 9:30 at night. So, yeah, we'll fold that in and make sure that it's balanced and working with council president.
Thanks. And if we're not moving as quickly as we're hoping, what would be the deadline for a November ballot?
It's August, I want to say August 6th. It's the, whatever the primary is, it would be the week before that. So actually, yes, I remember now, it's July 31st would be the date you'd have to take action.
Okay, so yeah, May to August 6th, that's summer. It's hard to get information out when folks are at the beach, unless we go to the beach.
It's tough, the November ballot will be obviously a pretty busy one too, to get a local issue, to have voters have the opportunity to become educated about that when there's a pretty significant national issue on the ballot, so we know there's kind of advantages and disadvantages with both, so, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Ryan, for bringing up the itinerary for each date. And I think we've had that conversation with the administration. I think it'd be helpful, Jennifer, if you could maybe put a bullet point for each meeting, kind of what the subjects are, and we can keep refining that as time goes on. So just have the subject matters for each date would be very helpful. Obviously, she was prepared for that question, so good question on your part, so thank you. I think that's very important. Councilmember Zelingo.
Well, I appreciate, there are so many different ways one can look at this and understand the impact, so I appreciate the opportunity to interrupt when you're partway through this and ask questions. And I'm thinking one other, after years, this problem has built for years, the council's considered it for years. I think though we haven't made any decisions, I'm sensing a strong lean toward resolving this now somehow. But the other element of that, the other angle that occurs to me that I think I can imagine our community members asking us is, well, if you don't do this, or if it doesn't pass, then what must you do to balance the budget? And I do think that's an answer we're going to want to have in the weeks to come.
Any other questions? Councilman Ryan, thank you.
Thanks, Megan. So at May 1st, if we were to take an action with the resolution, would that also include direction on whether or not council would like to see us actively pursue a snow aisle or RFA annexation? Or is that a separate action from what would be considered
It would
on
be
May 1st?
separate. I think I would say that we're operating under the resolution that you passed like last month.
January.
That said, in January, that said to explore all three. So we, kind of use that direction to continue to explore the library and fire topics. And then we'd ask for a new action, basically, when we get there. Right, Mayor?
I can tell you that with this, so the resolution that you will consider will only be around property tax levy lift. Will have nothing to do with annexations, potential annexations of either library or fire. I have directed staff to focus their energy on this with this aggressive timeline. We really won't have a lot of opportunity to take a deep dive further in the other two. That being said, we will continue to have conversations with our partners and the willing or unwilling dance partners. I think they're all willing at this point. We're not talking to any unwilling. Just, what are the differences? What are the pros and cons as the different entities see it? And any of that information, I will happily share and update the council in my meetings with you, but I would encourage us as a whole to focus on this one thing for the next 3 months, and then once we get through this one, it's not like staff will have done nothing. We will have continued to do a little bit of work, and we should be able to come back to you and kind of share what we're seeing now after a little bit of additional research, but no real progress because we've taken no action other than exploratory.
Great. Yeah, I'm still, I do think pursuing the levy lid lift as our primary focus, all hands on deck, I think is a good move. I still have reservations about an RFA and a snow aisle annexation. So process-wise, I'm just curious, like at what point would council be able to weigh in to say, like, hold on, maybe we shouldn't pursue this anymore with now that we have all this information and we have a clearer picture of what a potential path could be, maybe it's time to pump the brakes. So I'm not sure, like, at what point would we be able to say,
I had
reconsider.
envisioned like a quarterly update. So if you think about from today, maybe that's in, well, to be honest, maybe it's just sort of after all of that activity. So maybe we can schedule something in like May or June if that makes sense. But I'll reserve the right to retract that.
And again, I'm going to jump
Yeah.
in and say, based on Susie's presentation,
Yeah.
for us to just say we only want to look at property tax and nothing else in the future would probably not be advised. I don't think any of them are attractive options. I don't think any of these three are things that like, woo-hoo, let's get on board and raise taxes. I think it's going to be a struggle to do any of them. But we are not financially sustainable. And so at some point, levy lid lift, let's say it passes, let's say we move forward, 3-4 years from now, we're going to have to do something else, and maybe even before that based on the rate. So in my role as mayor, I'm going to continue to advise our staff to explore any and all revenue options and continue to present that with you as informational. You can only direct action, so there's not going to be any action taken until you all direct that. But staff are going to continue to do some research based on our time and availability to do that, because we have to find a solution to the financial challenges that we've been facing for years.
Sure, and yeah, I completely agree with that. I didn't mean to insinuate that I didn't want anything else to happen. I think that I see that there's more than just 3 options. Right now, we're exploring the 3 options, but I see a multitude of other options as well. So bringing other things to the table for consideration, I think, would be wise in the future. But I still think all hands on deck for now for the levy lid lift's a great idea. Thanks.
And I appreciate your comments, Councilman Ryan. I'm going to be realistic. I don't know how, Mayor, I know your staff is amazing. I just don't know how much they can really focus on anything more than this and the regular duties of their job. I also think a lot will have to do with as you said, with the rate that we decide on and how much buffer we have to make decisions in the future. So at this point, I'm not thinking that we're going to spend a lot of time on those 2 other options. So, and so maybe perhaps at some point after this process, we can reevaluate and bring other things to the table. I think it's a good idea also. So, Councilmember Volkley.
Thank you. Also, I'm agreeing with all of this, and I'm thinking about Everett Transit and how 3 years ago, it was almost inevitable that we had to merge, and now we don't for the foreseeable future. And there's, because of grants, because of federal funding, because of the things. And I am hopeful that perhaps there are benefactors, we'd be the benefactee, benefactors out there for at least the library. I don't know about fire authorities, but there's got to be grants and people that just absolutely are to die for the library. And finding those people might be difficult, but they're out there. Grants.
Okay, thank you. Any questions based on the presentation? One more? Okay, Councilmember Volkley.
Has a list been sent out? I know that has a list been sent out of previous cuts that the city has taken? It seems like I've read that, or maybe we've just talked about it a little bit. And then I think I heard Jennifer say that that was one of like the April briefings about all of the things that we've had to cut. But did a sort of semi-list go out once?
Yes, so that was the subject, a big subject of the February briefing that I presented. So I can resend you out that slide deck.
I can look for it. I just wanted to, I knew something. I just didn't
So
know when.
we went through it in detail at that meeting, and I could I'm going to resurrect that presentation to deliver again. I know
Maybe,
that.
maybe send the link to the meeting too, because it's hard just when you're looking at the PowerPoint. I think if people are interested, rewatching the meeting will help refresh everybody's memory.
And also, we're going to, you said resurrect it, that'll be one of the topics for one of our workshop meetings also,
Yes.
which I think is really good. Thank you. Good question. Okay, any other questions? All right, I want to thank you very much for the presentation, and thanks tonight for good discussion. With no further business, meeting adjourned.